And hello, and welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. I'm here with my wonderful, beautiful co-host, Christy Santiago.
Happy Friday, guys. Welcome to the League. We have a fun show tonight. Not all of it is going to be fun per se, but very informative, and I'm glad to be back. So much news has happened, and we have Mac. Can't beat that. It's the original duo, if you will. And of course, our producer, Nacho Witness, who we would never be able to do anything without. So thank you very much. Everybody should give a round of applause for Nacho. And I'm glad you guys are here with us tonight. It's, what we do on Friday nights is get down with the get down on the topics and nerdiness and issues of today with as much reason and logic as possible, with some silliness, because a side of silly always makes the medicine go down better.
Yeah.
Although we do not add silliness to issues that it would be inappropriate for, just for anyone new or watching for the first time. Although if it can require some silliness, it's getting a dose. So that being said.
Yeah. Well, that all said, it is nice to be back here because I haven't been here in a month. Also, I think I'm pretty overexposed, and I'm going to try to fix that as we continue on.
Cover yourself, Mac.
That said, no, I'm really excited for tonight's show. I think Christy's going first. And then we're going to get into a plethora of things with me. I have a few things ready, so I'm really excited.
Ew.
Take it away, Christy Santiago.
All right.
If that is your real name.
Oh. So we just celebrated our 31st anniversary of the ADA, Americans with Disability Act. Only 31 years. So the civil rights has been going, for a very long time. We finally made, as a nation, some headway in the 60s with civil rights. That doesn't mean that that's when that started and came to fruition. It means that hundreds of years went into that, decades and decades went into that, months and months went into that. So the same is true about the ADA. The Americans with Disability Act is younger than myself. And being that not all of you know, and I do not share this with everyone, I am legally disabled. So doing this story, I would love to spend 2 hours on the history and who did what and who are these heroes and, all of that. That would be right up my alley. But I was able to not take it there. If you guys would like some sources on individual protests, on the inches that were made during this time, let me know. I will not only gladly but excitingly let you know and share those with you. So
want it.
You're such a silly butt. I can't. Here we go. When the Capitol Crawl, that's what it was known as, dramatized the need for Americans with disabilities. Americans with Disabilities Act became a thing. The 1990 protests demonstrated the barriers that inaccessible buildings create for people with disabilities. On March 13th, 1990, I was finishing 8th grade and entering high school. So it's absurd that it took this long. However, over 1,000 people marched or rolled or limped or used their walker or their cane or had people help them and their allies. Over 1,000 of them marched from the White House to the U.S. Capitol to demand that Congress pass the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA as we know it today. When they got there, about 60 of them cast aside their wheelchairs, which means they rocked until it fell over. on their own, and others who weren't in wheelchair cast aside their mobility aids, and they crawled up the Capitol steps. There are so many photos of this. It's breathtaking and inspiring and heartbreaking and all of these confusing feelings all in one. And at the same time, you can't help thinking, those are American heroes right there doing what they got to do to make their voices heard. The Capitol Crawl, as it was known and has been called since, was a physical demonstration on how inaccessible architecture impacts people with disabilities. It also highlighted the urgency behind the need to pass the ADA, which President George H.W. Bush, I'm trying to say it properly, hold on, George H.W. Bush signed into law. It's hard not to be silly when it's him, okay? And he did that on July 26, 1990. An 8-year-old activist joins the crawl. Now, I spent a lot of time learning about this young woman who is now, a very, very much a beautiful adult, or became a beautiful adult. I don't know what she's doing exactly today, contemporarily, but I did follow her into, years after this happened. And she was just born to make a difference and help people. She saw it no other way. Her parents almost could not tell her what she could and couldn't do when it came to being an activist for people who shared a wheelchair like her, for people who used a cane, for anybody with any disability. This young girl at age 5 and 6 demanded to be a part of protests for this. So we're going to start when she's 8 years old. This 8-year-old activist joins the crawl. The youngest person to climb the steps that day was 8-year-old Jennifer Keelan Chaffins, or Chaffins, probably Chaffins. We're going to go with that. Who by then had already been protesting for 2 years. At age 6, she attempted her first protest in Phoenix to advocate for accessible buses with ADAPT. That's ADAPT, all capitals. ADAPT is what it has been known to be called now. The same disability rights group that helped organize the 1990 march in DC. There's so many photos. There's one photo that I just love. People who can use their arms and not their legs are using their arms to go up one step at a time. Others are crawling up on their arms. Others only have the one side to use. Others have people helping them by putting them on something and sliding them up there. It was just, it's hard to watch that and not understand that they are fighting for their life, to be able to participate in things we take for granted. When I wait at a bus stop and that bus pulls up, I know I can get on. If I have the fare, I can get on. That's not always been the way it's been for all of us. So for me, this young lady, says Keelan, this was the first time that I had ever seen people with disabilities like myself fighting for their rights like I do. Keelan then, who continues her activist work and helped develop the children's book, says, hold on, her book, if anyone's interested, is called All the Way to the Top, about her climb to the Capitol. Quote, I realize these people with disabilities are fighting for their right to be acknowledged and accepted. And I can too. And I want to be a part of that. And I'm going to be a part of that. It impacts my life as well. When Keelan Chaffins showed up to the Capitol crawl, some organizers weren't sure if it was a good idea for her to climb the steps. This was because she was a child, and also because they, quote, were concerned about what that could do, the image of her climbing the steps, and whether or not it would send a message of pity instead of empowerment. That's the end of the quote. And I don't think Keelan agreed with any of this. Quote, even though I was quite young, I realized that as one of the very few kids that got to be involved in this movement, that was privileged enough to be involved in this movement, whose parents encouraged her to be a part of this movement. It wasn't just about myself, but it was about them and the people with disabilities everywhere, she says. Legislative victories before the ADA. Disability rights groups have existed in the United States since at least the 19th century. In the decades leading up to the ADA, activists won legislative victories, gaining access to education, housing, transportation, transportation and federal buildings. In particular, the Rehabilitation Act of the 1973 Act set an important legal precedent for disability as a protected category of minorities. The 1990 Capitol Crawl was part of a week of demonstrations in DC around the ADA, which sought to provide stronger protections for disability rights, stronger than any US law before it. The day after the crawl, police arrested 104 people at the ADAPT protest inside the Capitol Rotunda. One of them was Keelan Chaffin's mother, Cynthia Keelan. Quote, "We all pretended like we were going for the tour," Keelan says. "Once we got everyone up to the Capitol Rotunda, then we all sat down or stood there and we said, we want to meet with the Speaker of the House. And they weren't leaving until they did." You know, as I'm reading this week, over and over and over, I kept hearing our late great, we just lost him, John Lewis, and how he said, you know, going across that bridge and getting his head bashed in, marching that Selma movement, the whole civil rights movement. He called it good trouble. Sometimes you just got to get into some good trouble. And while reading this entire week about this movement of disabled brothers and sisters of ours who had waited freaking long enough, we're talking about in my lifetime. My daughter was 8 years, my baby, my youngest daughter was 8 years old when this was signed into law. So good trouble, yeah, John Lewis, good trouble. And you know, this is for you, John Lewis. And I'm sure when things like this happen, even though he was around for all this, he has to know that good trouble saying is so loaded with empathy and goodness and righteousness and morality that there's no other way to describe what was going on here, is that these Americans were using their First Amendment right to get into some gosh darn good trouble. The year before in Montreal, police had arrested both Keelan and 7-year-old Keelan Chaffin while protesting a conference for the American Public Transportation Association. Ironically, let me get comfortable here. Ironically, the police had to obtain accessible school buses. Let me just read this a little slower because it's very ironic. The year before in Montreal, police had arrested both Keelan and their 7-year-old Keelan Chaffin while protesting a conference for the American Public Transportation Association. So they're protesting that they cannot use public transportation. Ironically, the police had to wait so that they could obtain accessible school buses to transport the arrested demonstrators because they didn't have accessible paddy wagons. Just moment of silence for that irony. Because of this experience, Keelan was careful to make sure Keelan Chaffin and her younger sister, Kaylee Keelan, were safe the day of the arrest at the Capitol Rotunda. Quote, "But I did want my mother to get arrested on my behalf," Keelan Chaffin says. Kaylee, my sister, and I both did ask my mom, Mom, get arrested today, end quote. Though the reporters and photographers covered the Capitol crawl, particularly Keelan Chaufin's climb, it didn't receive huge amounts of media attention, and I can account for this. I could not find any mainstream media of that particular girl climbing the steps and being spoken about. There were a few that showed different pictures and then spoke about it on the 31st anniversary and the 30th anniversary. I even went back to the 10th anniversary, and I couldn't find any because, you know, that 7-year-old, God, what a lot of oomph behind that. So even though they didn't particularly cover Keelan Chaufin's climb, it didn't receive a huge amount of media attention at the time either. Even so, it marked a significant event in disability rights history. Quote, "It's a dramatic event," says Leonard J. Davis, a professor of English Disability Studies and Medical Education at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and author of, quote, "Enabling Acts, the hidden story of how the Americans with Disability Act gave the largest United States minority its rights," end quote. And another quote from him, "You can't watch the documentary that goes with that with the same name, The Hidden Story of How Americans with Disabilities Act Gave the Largest U.S. Minority Its Rights," that's the name. You can't watch that without being well aware of the difficulties of people with disabilities when they confront obstacles like stairs that we take for granted. It's definitely seen as a very important moment in disability rights and the activism that comes from that, says Amy Hamray, or Hamray. I'm probably massacring her name. I apologize if you ever see this. Miss Amy H. She is a professor, or they are a professor of medicine, health and health and society at Vanderbilt University, and author of Building Access, Universal Design, and the Politics of Disability. Every building, in their mind, should be built to accommodate someone or anyone with disabilities. One of the reasons is that it is part of a history and a lineage of disability activists doing protests in public spaces and that use disability, includes disabled bodies, including disabled bodies out of their chairs to create, something that would make people stop and get their attention. And assistive technologies to show that the built environment as we have it now is inaccessible, Hamare says. So there's a longer history of this practice that goes back at least to the 1950s, if not much, much earlier. Disability activism did not begin with the ADA, and it didn't end with it either. The ADA Amendments Act of 2008, guys, 2008, sought to broaden the original law, further protecting people with disabilities. In 2017, disability rights organizations like ADAPT staged well-publicized protests against cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. These were the protests at which the police pulled protesters from their wheelchairs and carried them out of the federal buildings on Capitol Hill over their shoulders or dragged them. The same place activists had climbed steps to call for the ADA's passage nearly 30 years before were the same steps these officers kicked over wheelchairs and pulled or carried disabled people out. So I'm glad I ended with that, because that's where we are today. There's so much hope and this movement that kept growing. Civil rights is not something that happened, and is done. It is not done. It is not done until every public building, bathroom, grocery store, restaurant, pub is accessible for every human. And being that now you guys all know that I am legally disabled, as of right now, I was told that I would probably be using a cane or a walker by now. And there are moments when if I had a cane, it would probably be easier to get out of a chair. But I do a lot of yoga and I do a lot of stretching and I have an inversion table. And the disease I have in my spine is degenerative. However, with degenerative, that means that any damage that is done or accrues or that I acquire because of the disease is irreversible. There's nothing I can do to fix it or change it. However, comma, that's the big one. The longer I can keep going with how it is, the longer I'll have before it gets to a point where it's too irreversible. So I can keep it where it is for as long as I can by doing specific things, even though I was told those things are definitely not going to prolong my walking or prolong me not needing a walker. I say in your face because I'm still doing those things. Yes, it's hard. The first walk of the morning, every morning with Mr. Bean, I'm almost in tears when I know as soon as he drops that deuce, I got to be the good, respectable, and responsible pet owner and use that little poop bag and squat down. The squatting down is hard and hurts. Get the poop. But it's the getting up where I'm like, okay, I pushed humans out of me. I can do this. It's going to hurt, but I'm not going to die. I have every morning. And then I come up and I'm like, still wouldn't trade my dog. So as long as I keep doing these things, sit on my yoga ball. I am sitting on a chair, which is an absolute no-no, but I only do it every other Friday for this show. And if you guys ever remember at the beginning, I sat on a yoga ball and I was told that it was a distraction. My ADD gets involved. And so I start, hopping along, and then you get the goofballs in the chat saying girls on trampolines. Remember the man show? I might be dating myself. So
I didn't know that's why you stopped sitting on the bouncing ball.
Well, I just want people to pay attention to the topics at hand and not, I'm not like well endowed, but I guess boobs bouncing is boobs bouncing for some people. So, but there will be times, I promise that it will not be an option. I'll be on a yoga ball. And for you guys that have been following me and are my friends and we talk on a regular basis, I'm sure you'll know right away that it was just a day that I could not sit in the chair and I needed my big blue ball.
Yep. And that's okay.
It is okay. I really thought it was important to celebrate the ADA, not just because it's personal to me, but because we're not done. Everyone I know knows someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a family in-law married into, that is disabled. And it is their allies' responsibility to make sure that we fight for them. That's all I have to say.
It is. So these, and a lot of these fights that we care about as humanists, the allies really, really help. Like no one can really do it alone, right? That's like
Right.
part of the humanist idea, right? Is that we need each other. That's why I think there's so many of us that are leftists, because we like that community and we like that society, and we realize that we need each other to make any progress. I think it's really elementary to just realize that we need each other, especially those who can't fight as much for themselves. Again, I think it's just basic. It's just elementary. Like you like it takes a village, not just to raise kids, but just to build a community. like you can't do it on your own, and you can't do it as just one label either. Like you need to show solidarity with, as Christy kind of said, with your brothers and sisters, like everyone. Like you need to help each other out when you see someone in need. That's just the good Samaritan thing to do, even. So, cheers.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me share that. And actually, it just kind of rolled right off. I've always been so intimidated to share that. I don't want people to think of me differently, to, I don't want any pity. Empathy is wonderful. Love is wonderful. As a humanist, that doesn't mean I'm not human. And some things do get under my skin. When someone asks what's wrong, and I trust them enough to explain it to them, and then they like rub my back like this, like, it's okay. I'm like, oh, okay. First of all, don't ever do that again. And second of all, no, it's not. Or I hope you get better soon. There's been a couple times where I've just had to walk away because I don't know, that's so uncouthful. That's like saying I have stage 4 cancer. I've decided not to go through all the chemotherapy and enjoy the life I have left with my family. And someone saying, not the exact same, I'm not going to die immediately, but similar in theory as to saying, well, I hope you get better soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that, like, I'll go ahead and make that obvious connection to all of this, right? Like this is a big reason why we one of our biggest issues is Medicare for all.
Yes.
Right. Because even just trying to get on a bus, have the physical ability to get on a bus, that should be the job of the government. As in to say, that should be something that a society as a whole cares about.
Yes.
And that we all want to see, so we all put money in the pot so we can make it happen. Not that the state has to take control. No, that we all put money into the same goddamn piggy bank, of
right.
which is the government, of which we should control better. Right?
I agree.
That's what it means.
We,
right?
the people, has been lost along the way because corporations have, bought it.
Yeah.
Yes. So many things go undiagnosed until it's too late in this country. I'm talking about the United States of America. Yes, you, Lady Liberty. Because people cannot afford the $250 to go see a doctor in cash without insurance. For that doctor to tell them, ooh, you need to go see a specialist. Now we're talking anywhere from $400 to $900 for that appointment in cash. For them to say, oh yes, something is or isn't. If something isn't wrong, well, that money you'll never get back. Something is wrong. Now what? Now what? You can't afford to go see that specialist, so you don't.
Can't do anything about
and then
it
festers, and then you end up in the emergency room. And a lot of times it's too late. We do not have a healthcare system. We have an emergency system.
Yeah. So that said, this is a perfect segue. And let's go ahead and change topics. I'll say that first before I move on.
I'm hugging everyone. Hug.
See?
Yeah. Everybody gets hugged.
All right.
Especially you now.
Switch now. All right. So the next topic that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention was that there was a March for Medicare for All. That's a mouthful. The hashtag is more of somehow more of a.
Say it 3 times in a row.
What the whole thing or just the hashtag?
The whole thing.
March for Medicare for All. March for Medicare for All. March for Medicare for All. I did okay. I did all right.
The first and the last were perfect. The middle one was a little bit like stew.
Yeah, there's a little more R in the middle. All right, so thank you so much. So people showed up to more than 40 cities nationwide. Breonna Taylor, I believe, was one of the speakers. I think Jimmy Dore had a small speech in there. Cori Bush attended, and there were a few thousand people who attended. I don't know the actual numbers, but it sounds like there were around 100 at each location, but there were over 40 cities. I heard maybe even over 50, but I went with the lower one. This is awesome. This is a good thing. I was a little frustrated to see that some people on the left were not happy that there was a march for Medicare for All, because, like, I don't know when we're supposed to stop fighting, but I'm pretty sure it's not before we get Medicare for All. Am I right, Christy?
I think you have a point there.
Okay, thank you for legitimizing me just a little bit. Okay. I wanted to read a few quotes from their official website, and I don't have the link, but that's okay because I took the notes on it anyways. Why are they fighting for this? And I found one little quote here that really summed it up really, really well. And before I read that, I want to make sure that I do read the fact that Medicare for All could save the U.S. $5 trillion in a decade. It's okay, we can't afford it. Anyway.
I saw that.
So the quote, many of us have our own personal stories as to why we are in this fight. All of us know that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. It is a basic freedom. How can we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness when we are in constant fear of illness, bankruptcy, or homelessness because of the outrageous for-profit healthcare system? Because it's inhumane, right? It doesn't actually help. Like, healthcare sounds like it should be a helpful thing, right? And helpful things shouldn't necessarily be for profit. That shouldn't be the motive. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, so I'm going to move on. I wanted to actually read the petition to you. And then after I read that to you, I would like you to go and actually go sign the petition. So I'm going to make sure I copy the link correctly here and not the... Dang it.
Please put the link underneath the video as well, so that people who watch this later and don't want to scroll through the chat can also go right directly to it.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
There we go.
Por favor, papi.
For
Papi Mac.
All right, so let me go ahead and read this whole thing because it's short, it's concise, and it's a good fucking idea. So here we go. The petition. We demand the United States government: 1. Pass improved and expanded Medicare for all immediately. A single-payer healthcare system that is free at the point of service to all Americans, regardless of sex, age, creed, race, religion, gender identity, citizenship, disability, geographic location, income, and employment status, which includes, but not limited to, zero copays, zero deductible, zero in or out of network restrictions, full dental covered, full vision covered, full funeral expenses covered, full chronic conditions covered, full senior centers, nursing homes and long-term care covered, full home care covered, full elective surgery covered, such as abortions, full ideology covered, full biometric or bio I can't say that word surgery covered, full post-surgical care covered, full palliative and end of life covered, full maternity, newborn, and pediatric care covered, full acupuncture covered, full rehabilitative covered, full physical therapy covered, full reproductive care covered. Sorry, my stuttering, jumping in. Full substance abuse treatment covered, full medical devices and biological products covered, full mental health covered, full prescription drugs covered, full medical marijuana, entheogenic plants and fungi covered. And two, because that was still one, if you could get through my reading of it, recognize healthcare as a human right for all people, regardless of sex, age, creed, race, religion, gender identity, citizenship, disability, geographic location, income, and employment status. And three, prioritize healthcare first in the federal budget, which includes, but is not limited to, eliminate medical debt immediately, funding the single-payer healthcare system, funding wellness centers, nutrition centers, and preventative care, improving communities with the least amount of hospitals and clinics, employing more healthcare professionals nationwide, enrolling future doctors and nurses in schools nationwide. That's what the funding should go towards. I especially appreciate here at the end, if these demands are not met on or before Friday, August 6, 2021, we, the Medicare for All movement, will file a human rights violation complaint with the United Nations. That is fantastic. If you don't know or don't remember, every fucking first world nation except us has some kind of social healthcare system, like a single payer.
Many second world and third world, if we still want to use those terms. The underdeveloped worlds, the people who are midway, and first world, very developed worlds. I'd say there are nations who are struggling to become a developed world, who offer healthcare, mental care, dental, and vision to every citizen. There is only one reason we do not have it, and it's not a lack of money.
We're going to cover this more later, but Cuba
Cuba
does better in healthcare than we do. And there's an embargo against them.
And they have zero medical equipment like we do.
Yeah, and they have a better mortality rate than the US.
By 11 years almost.
That's no offense, Cuba, but that's bullshit. So, Yeah, it's absolute absurdity. Absolute.
Oh.
Another thing here. Moving on, more or less here. I'm going to the Ben and Jerry's nacho.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have a slide for that. But and I'm going to get back to the Medicare for All thing a little bit later, but that's fine. Next story is Ben and Jerry's hashtag BDS. They have decided to stop selling their ice cream to the occupied Palestinian territories. So let me read what they put on Twitter. As Jewish voices, too much sh in there. As Jewish supporters of the state of Israel, we fundamentally reject the notion that it is anti-Semitic to question the policy of the state of Israel. Read our co-founders' op-ed and the New York Times opinions on our operations in the occupied Palestinian territories. And there is a link there. If you go to Twitter, check out Ben and Jerry's. But the dealio is they're no longer going to be selling their ice cream. I think I have the date. I think it's by July 19th of 2022. So here in like the next year, done until Israel is done occupying a territory that isn't theirs. So on to the backlash.
Hold on, I want to say real quick.
Please.
Ben and Jerry's has not stopped selling Ben and Jerry's in Israel. They've only stopped selling Ben and Jerry's in the occupied Palestinian areas where the Palestinians have to use separate roads, many times dirt. They're not allowed to shop at the same place. They're not allowed to get loans. They're not allowed to buy building materials. So when Israel bombs entire neighborhoods, they cannot rebuild them. Those are the areas where Ben and Jerry's had said, no, we do not want our products in that area. It is an apartheid area. So there are people who are big time in boycott, divestment, the whole BDS and sanction movement, who say this is not enough. And Ben and Jerry said, we have no problem with Israel. We have a problem with this, and we will not participate. However, Israel is not letting people know that all of that factual information I just gave you. What they're saying is Ben and Jerry's is attacking us and stopping our nation from making money, from benefit. They're taking money from our mouths. So we must do everything we can. They have 30 states that have laws on the books. So teachers who are dying to have a job after this COVID bonanza that just happened, they want that first job that happens because they're behind on everything. Well, in order to get that job, they have to sign that they will not participate in any boycotting of Israel, of any divestment that could financially hurt the state of Israel, and any sanctions. They cannot talk bad about them. They have to support them. This is a foreign country, a foreign nation. You're making teachers and fire departments and police departments and whole entire school districts and even private businesses are making their employees sign something saying that their First Amendment is shit. And by signing this, you're giving up your First Amendment. And that's okay in this country, to give up our Constitution to benefit a foreign government? I think not.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. Yes. No, it's
okay. Let's just role reversal. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Iran.
Mm.
Iran. You have to sign this right here that you will not talk bad about Iran, that you will not boycott Iran, that you will not divest in Iran, and any sanctions against them. at all are illegal. You can't have them. And if you want them, then you're the one that's treasonous. Or Cuba, or Russia, or China. Yeah. Logic works this way. If it's not okay these ways, it's not okay this way.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, if you want to boycott Russia for election meddling, and someone says that's against your First Amendment right?
It is. It is, according to this.
There's some doublethink going on, isn't there?
Right.
Or
and for anyone who says it's different because that's Yahweh's chosen land, well, then that's an extraordinary claim. And extraordinary claims require what, my people?
Extraordinary evidence.
You win! Ding, ding, ding. Gold star for my Mackie Poo. Oh, you guys.
Oh, you got it filled in. Yes.
Look at that baby.
So
Hold on, right. Whoa. Hello. Falling down.
Behind the scenes.
Oh yeah. Let's see. I'm really bad at this. Here we go.
You're gonna have to make sure you take another picture and post it on Twitter. So
I'll put it on the LEAH Facebook group.
Yes, please.
Hello.
There she is. Look, your face is back. Ta-da! All right. So I want to go over the reactions, some of the negative reactions of this announcement from Ben and Jerry's.
Oh, yes, they're so good.
Okay. Israel leaders have raged against the firm and its corporate owner for the July 19th decision to cut ties with its Israeli manufacturer and distributor and end sales over the Green Line from the end of 2022, terming it anti-Semitic and a form of terrorism to not sell ice cream to a territory.
Right. But blowing up people while they're sleeping in their homes so that you can take over their home and move your religious preferred people into it. It rhymes with self-defense, but the real word is fascism.
Yeah. It is not clear whether Ben and Jerry's products will continue to be available in Israel from after that date, was the rest of that quote. And that was from the Times of Israel. That's where I got that. So moving up here on my notes, the Illinois Investment Policy Board monitors compliance with the state prohibiting the investment in certain companies that do business with Iran and Sudan, as well as companies that boycott Israel. So this board in Illinois, I'm sorry, gotta watch my guy, I'll watch that. They prohibit companies that deal with Iran and Sudan, it's other countries. But if you boycott another country, they won't do business with you there. There's a little bit of a disconnect. No matter what you say, there's not quite a level standard.
No,
moving on. There's not. From there, this is for Texas and Florida. Ben & Jerry's decision to boycott parts of Israel. I want to stop right there because the first time I read that, I didn't catch it. It's not really parts of Israel. That's kind of the point here.
Misinformation at its finest.
Just sprinkled it like I didn't catch it the first time, but read it out loud. Boycott parts of Israel. It's not parts of Israel.
Nope.
Anyways, moving on. Is disgraceful and an insult to America's closest ally in the Middle East. besides that other Saudi Arabia,
Right.
Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott said in a statement Tuesday relayed from a spokesperson to CNBC. Unilever, Ben & Jerry's parent company, must reverse this ill-conceived decision. Abbott signed a bill into law 4 years ago that would force Texas pension funds to divest from any company boycotting Israel. Extra little fun fact. So yeah.
I have another fun fact.
Please.
Israel is using everything it has, every person it has, every favor they can call in, every bit of money they've paid out. They are going as hard as they can to those 30 states in our nation who have implemented this. You must sign that you will not participate in BDS against Israel in order to have a job. Those states who have agreed to foment at the mouth for a foreign country, those 30 states, Israel has vowed to use everything they can and leave no stone unturned to go after any store who sells Ben & Jerry's, to anybody who buys Ben & Jerry's, to make you feel like crap if you do. And then they want to, this hasn't happened. This is what they want. They want to use those states whose governors are conservative and agreed that BDS was the greatest thing ever because it's Yahweh's land. And of course, you can't talk bad about God's land. He's just a God. He needs us beautiful, strong humans to protect him. So, I mean, all powerful. Yeah. But he needs us to protect them. So if this goes through, and individual corporations start punishing people for being a part of it, that's one thing that gets under my skin. However, if our government goes after corporations, businesses, moms and pops, any small business, any major business, because they sell Ben & Jerry's, I'm telling you that this will make it go to the SCOTUS. It will go to the Supreme Court if this goes through. And it has gone to the Supreme Court in the last over 14 years, multiple times, and has lost every single time. You know why? It is
unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional. So
yeah, it is a direct infringement of the First Amendment.
This is my thoughts. Tell me how you feel about this. Okay, so a lawmaker, I don't care if you're Senate, House, Congress, I don't care. If you are a lawmaker and you implement laws that protect a foreign nation over your own, or even just a foreign nation, you should not be able to be in that seat of leadership. When it comes, say you do not get kicked out because of it, but when the time comes that your term's up, not only are you not able to run again, you are never able to run again because you are doing the bidding of a foreign nation in this country against our Constitution. And if I had a gavel, I would bang it right now.
Yeah. I don't think you can't ever help foreign nations, right? But if you're going to over your own people, or if you're going to, and I'm just reiterating for clarity.
Right. If you go against the Constitution to help a foreign nation, a foreign nation, you should never be able to hold that spot.
No, yeah, it should disqualify you. I agree.
I mean, the First Amendment, it's called the First Amendment. I am allowed to go, you know what? Mac pissed me off last night. I'm going to boycott, divest, and sanction from his ass. That's my right.
Buy my cupcakes.
I will not.
Damn it.
See, First Amendment, working great. I will buy your cupcakes. How much are they?
Free will donation. I'm assuming.
Mine are medicated, by the way, not for kids.
I always assume.
You should always assume. Although we do make 2 batches, because once you've had the medical one, you're going to want another one, and probably you shouldn't eat another medical one. You should eat just a regular cupcake for your munchies. So we plan it out. We adults when we do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm the one who makes the ones safe for children, but there's a lot of sugar in them, so beware.
Right, exactly.
Sugarholic. All right. So we can move on to the next topic.
Let's do it.
But I want to say that these last 2 topics, with the March for Medicare for All and the BDS movement, the movement like on a chessboard move, those deserve credit, right? Those are good moves. Like maybe Ben and Jerry's could have done more. Maybe the March for Medicare for All wasn't all it could be, or maybe it was too late. Maybe it's not going to get us anywhere. I doubt that one, but maybe, right? All maybes. But credit where credit is due, right? This is what I want to talk about tonight. And I'm always worried that like I'm gonna like say something off the cuff that like Christy's like not gonna like, and then we're gonna like have to like argue over it. And I don't feel like that's
over
gonna
my
happen,
knee, spank
right?
him.
Ah!
He's like, no, don't.
And I really don't feel like I have any fear of that tonight. And that makes me like worried that tonight's like she's gonna be like, damn it, Mac, you didn't run this by me. Okay, so if you hear anything or anyone's name that like makes a snap for a second, just listen to the rest of my rant because I promise it'll make sense by the end of it. I like wrote a monologue. I'm very ready because I want to talk about this. It's important to me, and it's not at the same time, but it mostly is. Credit where credit is due. What I just said about the March for Medicare for All people, protesters, they deserve credit. Ben and Jerry's, they deserve credit because it is a move in the right direction, even if you think it's not enough. It's a move in the right direction. Sometimes we got to accept crumbs. Power to the people. Thank you to everyone who stood up to Frito-Lay and went on strike, and the people who supported the strikers in Topeka, Kansas. Strikers need help, especially when people are forced to work 84 hours a week, sometimes up to 5 months in a row. Absolutely insane. And you had to earn days off, and you had to work a month straight to earn a point to put towards a day off. I don't know how many points you needed, though. Doesn't matter too many. They were now guaranteed, by the way, 1 day off a week, and they went back to work. They're behind or whatever, but they got something. Thank you to the coal miners. Those strikers down in Alabama. I forget the county, starts with an M. They were striking against basically their new company, Warrior Met, who, by the way, one of their hedge fund supporters is BlackRock. Loving them recently with the housing crisis. But thank you to everyone who supported or who is supporting the coal miner strikers. Not just in Alabama, but they went to New York to protest the hedge funders. And that's fantastic. That's good shit. We need that. 1,100 miners have been on strike for 4 months, and they've gotten little to no coverage. kind of like the Frito-Lay strikers and also kind of like the Medicare for All protesters. Hardly any credit, hardly any coverage, partly because no one in our mainstream media sphere wants to cover unions, strikers, anything about Medicare for All because it really hurts their donors. That's just, we know this, but it needs repeated now and then. Also, thank you in advance to everyone who's going to join in the general strike, October 15th, 2021. If you don't know about it, general strike, October 15th, 2021. If you can make it, you should make it. You should go out, find a local protest, and join it. Why I'm doing this tonight, now getting into my whole spiel here, is because I am absolutely sick and tired of the infighting that I'm seeing in left-wing circles. I ignore most of it, honestly, most of it. You would think it doesn't bother me as much because of how much I ignore it. But my view is you can all do and say what you want, right? Like as viewers or as content creators. Do or say what you want. But I'm setting some solid standards for myself, and I want to share them here because this is my outlet to do so. These standards consist of questions, and I'm going to line them up for you. And I have more, but these are the first 5 here, and I want to share more as we go. And Christy, I would like to know what you think of these standards that I am setting. Are they correct? I don't
know if correct would be, correct. Moral, yes. Needed, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I just know if correct doesn't. To me, it's like when you go to fill out an application and it's not applicable for you, you do NA. That's for me, that would be NA for that one. It is the moral thing to do. It is the best thing that we can do. And all we can do is try. And then at the end, when history shows, then we can add that word. It was the correct thing to do. As of right now, it's what's the best thing we can do with what the tools we have right now. Yes. And you're right.
A lot of this is retrospective, right? And I'm gonna note that retrospective. If I can spell it. There we go. The ones that go along with that. Are they correct? How and why are they correct? Right. Is the narrative productive? Does it comport with reality? Is it an honest perspective? Those are the 5 questions that I want to ask when I listen to any news story. Like, do I think they're being honest? Doesn't necessarily have to be with that first one. Are they correct? Right. Are they being honest? Right? They don't have to check every box, but they need to check at least fucking some of them. Right? And then how are they correct? Like, are they correct for the wrong reasons? Like they guessed it, right? Does that make them a reliable news source? No. Like, are they correct is less important than were they honest or how, why. Right. And
when they make a claim, like here are the facts of the story. Those are claims. Yeah. If I take those claims and write them down and then do my own fact checking and not one of them rises up to actually being a claim, it's just a claim that some fool made, then they were incorrect. And I find that a lot with many news sources. Or they were just enough correct with certain words, not what those words meant, but with the certain words just out of order. And they know that their audience will not check them. They will take their word for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Don't take our word for it here. Any
Yeah.
claims made here, look them up, please. And if we're ever wrong, or even just have something like we were on the right track, but we didn't quite get there, put it in the comments, please. The best part about being wrong is that now you get to be right.
Yeah, that's the way science works, right? And you can use the scientific method
Yes.
in your own ideologies.
Right.
It comports with logic.
God, sorry guys, something was in my eye, and when I pulled it out, it just kept coming. It was a cat hair.
Oh my God.
Like I don't know if you saw me, but I had to sit here with my eyes closed for a minute while you were talking and let my eye juices kind of pull it to the middle.
I gotcha.
Without rubbing, because the rubbing felt like it was scratching, and I said, okay, please get out of my eye, cat hair.
So
that was me doing a prayer for anyone who wants to cut that out, make a meme out of it. I prayed.
There you go. Okay. So I'm gonna continue with my with my rant real quick, and
I'll rant away.
I'll repeat those five things real quick. Are they correct? This can be retrospective. How and why are they correct? Is the narrative productive? Does it comport with reality? Is it an honest perspective? I would like to caveat all of that with a few quotes. All art is propaganda. All news is art. And it is a summary of events laced with an opinion. Right? That is art in some way. Maybe it's a loose definition, but it gets the point across. So I think, don't know which part to read first. Okay, I'm going to put it in the middle. I got it. We have to give credit where credit is due, when it is due, and it is especially when it doesn't fit the narrative and you know it. If you can't agree with Tucker Carlson when he says he's anti-war, while also knowing he's a right-wing bigot of the worst kind, how the fuck are you going to convince anyone in his audience? Those who disagree with us vehemently usually think the left is crazy. Socialism, communism, is evil. Government spending is always bad. You can't start to make sense if you can't point out where you agree. Furthermore, the crazier you look, the harder it is to view you as honest. If you don't come off as logically consistent, you might as well be wrong or lying. People can't usually tell the difference, and I've gone over this multiple times. People don't have the time to tell the difference. That is a huge part of this capitalist system that we all hate. People don't have time to tell the fucking difference.
No, they do not.
So, I'm going to name a list of channels that I like and I don't like. But I like them all for different reasons at different times. Secular Talk, Breaking Points, The Jimmy Dore Show, The Kim Iverson Show, Rising, The Majority Report, TYT, Second Thought, Thought Slime, the Status Quo, Empire Files, Red Lines, The Gray Zone, Pushback, Foreign Agents, Redacted Tonight, News Broke. I forgot to put John Oliver's show.
Humanist Report.
Good. Yeah, the Humanist Report. He is second to last. Pushback, Foreign Agents. News Broke. Fucking loved that show when it was on. I don't know if they're coming back. Non-Compete. It's a leftist show, not news, but it's definitely a fucking leftist show. No Mickey Const. The Tabernacle. The Convo Couch. Useful Idiots. Graham Elwood. The Progressive Voice. Economic Update. The Humanist Report. Fuck. Even Joe Rogan. The point is, if you're looking for information, if you boycott any of these completely, especially to the point of sorry, I can't trust your work at all because you quoted one of these people. Most of them, if not all of them, at least mean what they say, right? And a lot of them focus on different things. I know there's so many times, like, I agree with so much of like Max Blumenthal's like view on things and like his like the things that he covers with war and war crimes. Like there's very, very likely no one better to turn to. But when he makes an analogous like claim with something that doesn't involve war crimes, sometimes he couldn't be. Get back in your wheelhouse, dude. Like I might have to turn you off because I can't listen anymore because you're doing such a bad job. Jimmy Dore is one of the most infuriating people, but he's right often.
So is Kim Iverson.
He's one of the most honest people, like emotionally honest. Like, you know what he's fucking feeling because he'll let you know. And I do appreciate that from him because it's hard to say he doesn't turn more people to the left and maybe some left people more to the right, but he influences people and he covers things that others don't. I feel like Secular Talk is one of the best channels out there. Like he really tries to balance the shit. And I don't want to go through each one. That's not the point of this. The point is to finish my dialogue. I think we need to have a new discussion about labels. That is why I mentioned all of these. Who is on the left? What does that mean? Are you authoritarianist? Are you anarchist? Are you a moderate leftist? I'm not a real political or economic professional, anything. But I know that there is a political compass that places you not on a scale, but on an XY graph. You can be a communist that is pro-life, and you could potentially still be on the left. You can be a war hawk patriot that owns a worker co-op, and you could still be on the left.
John Boehner.
Say what?
Boehner.
You can vote for DNC pricks that won't do anything that is truly meaningful for their constituents and still go to a Medicare for All rally. We make rules to be in a club. Different club. There's a lot of fucking clubs and these left circles, these YouTube communities. But we quiz ourselves to find where we fall on this compass and on stances, right? we use left to fit our narrative. And we exile anyone who doesn't fit the narrative. When I feel like all of those channels or people who represent them are on the left. The left is a big fucking place, though. It's a really big place. Like, you don't have to agree with everyone. But one of the things that annoys me the most is like just that left, right? I think we need to reiterate what that means. And maybe you could say I'm more left. Maybe I'm up or down on the left scale, right? I feel like it would really be valuable to include the up and down part of the scale in our conversations more. And I know I mentioned it here. This isn't foreign to most of you, but it's really important. The DNC isn't left. We need to justify our definitions a little more. And you don't have to agree with anyone, but saying that they're not on the left or really just trying to purge people from movements or labels. I learned this back when I was just kind of a newer atheist, right? Trying to label yourself is as helpful as it is hurtful, because it can help you feel like you found community. And then you see all the cat fighting, and you're like, oh fuck, no, maybe I'm just an agnostic. Oh no, I don't know. That's bad too. Shit, right? Like, you pick labels that work for you, so you can find more information, find more community. But it's so rare when you find someone that you agree with 100%. But that said, I still listen to, I'm going to say there's 20 channels on my list right here. I still listen to 18 of them. And there's a few that I listen to the most. There's a few that I listen to very little, and I can't even finish a segment, but I still fucking check them out. I even fucking check out Tucker Carlson, because another thing I learned back when I was just realizing, like, oh, I'm not a conservative, is that there's so many channels, especially in mainstream media, not as much in our independent media, which most of these are. They don't show full clips. They show clips enough to fit the narrative. And that's bullshit. You have to go to the source of what you don't like, right? And you should go further than that. I agree with that intellectual dark web and that Sam Harris guy, that you need to steelman your opponent. I am definitely someone who believes that if you disagree with something, you should fucking understand it. You should be able to argue it. You should be able to devil's advocate the fuck out of it. Otherwise, you're probably missing something. And one really good bad argument could make you feel like, oh wow, I never really thought of it this way. And then it can really kind of crumble your worldview if you're not careful. If you hide from things you don't want to hear, it will sound like an epiphany later, right? I don't like that. If Dave Rubin isn't just a lying jackass, which I think he is, he's definitely a dummy who hid from opinions and thought he had a lot of epiphanies later. And I'm sure there's people who follow him who do fall into that category. And that, again, is why we need to give credit where credit is due. We need to give Donald Trump credit where we agree with him. We need to put down people in our own community when we disagree with them, but we don't need to say that they're not on the left, or that they are just bad actors, or they're dishonest, unless you can prove it. right? Aaron Ross says this, he's the best one to take from. Like, unless you can show it, you don't know it. And unless you can show someone is lying and they knew they were lying when they said it, then you can't show that they're lying, and you're the one who's gonna look like a liar. And you need to look, I'm gonna scroll down to re-say this. The crazier you look, the harder it is to view you as honest. If you don't come off as logically consistent, you might as well be wrong or lying. If you're anti-war until Trump does it, you might as well be fucking lying. You're not anti-war. Right? This is why I don't trust most people who say vote blue no matter who. Because you're principled until the rubber hits the road, and then you're not anymore. That doesn't mean you don't ever cover anything that's worthwhile. As long as you keep getting things right sometimes, I will continue to visit your channel. And others should too, because you need to see what people miss. You need to get that full picture, because we're all painting this fucking left narrative, and you need to see the full gambit. So, Christy, please jump in. What do you think? Also, Cavernacle, I saw you in the chat, and I totally didn't add you to the list. I swear. After I saw you, you were already in there. And again, before the Humanist Report. So hope that makes you happy.
Yes, Mike Figueroa is, him and John Idarola, I am just right here with. I know that we align. I mean, Michael Brooks, more than both of them, for sure. We're right here. And yeah, good people, for sure. And I agree with, nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect journalist. Max Blumenthal is one of my favorites. That doesn't mean that there's things that he said off the cuff or said after well thought out, and not just well thought out, but wrote it down and then read it again and decided he agreed with it and shared it with the world, that I don't agree with. But that doesn't make me like him less, respect him less. I'm a huge believer that not one human on this planet should be judged by the worst thing they've ever done in this world, nor should they be judged as an amazingly beautiful, perfect person by the one best thing they did in this world. We're all capable of both of those things, and it's the choices that we are fortunate to have that make us the people that we are. We chose the harder choice, or we chose the choice that was right in front of us that was the easiest. That doesn't mean that you're the type of person that is always going to choose that. It just means that at that time, that's the one you chose. And unless you sit down and have a nuanced conversation with that person, you shouldn't judge them. You can judge that decision, but them as a person, no. I love that our community is very nuanced, oriented, and humanist. I guess that's the whole point, is the humanist part. There's a lot going on in this world, whether it be politics, indoctrination, children starving, regular families trying to get by, and the leaders and powers that be degrading them, treating them like crap, thinking that, we can go ahead and give ourselves $2,000 or $3,000 bonuses out of the CARES Act money because certain states didn't want to accept it, and then all vote on it to give it to themselves. And then when it comes out that they did, they were like, no, I thought that was for other people. That is not what I'm talking about. There's no nuance in that. There are 3 things that happened. You're a fucking idiot and you did not read the bill and you signed it, whether you thought it was for your constituents or not. Or 2, you're an asshole and knew what was in it and signed it yes because you want that money for yourself. Or 3, worst of all, you have no idea what's in it. You just know that it needs to be signed, and you need to get the hell out of lawmaking.
Yeah.
That there's nothing else. There's people who are in dire need of even just a portion of that 2,000 or 28,000 was a couple bonuses in some areas. Like, it's the CARES Act money, and no, you don't get any. So this is what I was wanting to propose on that particular thing.
Yeah.
It will never happen. However, I would like to just kind of put this out here, and maybe it catches traction, maybe it doesn't. If you want to run for Congress, Senate, local, city, I don't care. You want to run for office. As the person who wins, you get the same exact pay as the median pay in that area. You get the same amount of paid days off as the median paid workers in that area get off. You get the same amount of sick days as the median, I can keep going. Also, you get the same exact health insurance access that those people get as well. Period.
I mean,
no forward.
seeing how taxes could and should be allocated by area, by state, by local communities, by federal, I think that's a really good idea.
I really like it because you know why? They're going to fight hard to get better healthcare for not just themselves, but for the comrades they're going to make, the camaraderie they're going to make. They'll be able to be the same, eye to eye. Here, I'm one of you. I'm fighting for you. I'm suffering the same as you. People like Nancy Pelosi and the like who have 2 Viking fridges in their kitchen, let alone the deep freezers they have in either their basement or their wherever next to their sauna. They have the best healthcare in this country. Vision, mental, dental healthcare. It's, to me, mental is your brain. That's part of your body. That's healthcare. Dental, part of your body. That's healthcare. Vision, part of your body. That's healthcare. I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on. If you are a sitting senator or congressman and you show up at the Capitol to go to either the House or the Senate and you have an office in there, your healthcare is solid. So why would you, it's not such a pressing matter for you because it doesn't even include you. And I understand that happens everywhere. People fight for something and then they get into a position where it's no longer an issue for them, even though they understand because they used to be there. There's more pressing matters that they have to deal with. No, I think that they should get the same, whatever area it is that they're representing, the same median pay with the same healthcare access, which means they have to go on and choose, and that comes out of their paycheck. Yeah, that's what I want, because I think the only way to see change is to make everyone, all men are created equal, except for the people who work at the Capitol. They are a little bit better than you. So that's gotta go. Yeah. Oh, and you guys, if you want to call Marjorie Taylor Greene a name that is a little bit trolly, but still humanist, because it is proper, I would like for you to call her Marjorie Trader Greene.
Ah, there we go. That's fine.
Yeah.
Hashtag that.
Yeah. Marjorie Trader Greene. I'm not threatening any violence. I am not being cruel. I'm just playing on words, which is my First Amendment right.
Oh, yes. And she's all about that.
She sure is about that.
She supports this message. I don't know if
the whistle guy, you guys. The whistle guy. Can we all like just give it to the whistle guy at Marjorie? I don't know if you guys saw. Okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz decided they were gonna travel around and do town halls. However, the areas that they rented out or let ahead of time know that they would be using these public spaces, their courthouses and town halls. Our government has these places all over in cities all over the country. Well, once they realized who was coming, they said no. So they had nowhere to go except for to set up podiums outside buildings. If they were lucky, they could do it on the same grounds as the courthouse, the same grounds as other government property. However, free speech works both ways. She has her free speech to show up and speak and say whatever she wants. But free speech doesn't mean that there's no consequences. It means that no one can physically harm you, threaten you, bodily harm, or, racial epithets and straight bigotry. That's unacceptable too, although it is protected underneath the First Amendment. So she is speaking, and this guy shows up with a mask over his mouth and a whistle, like a gym whistle. And so he's just blowing it, no matter what she says. It is the perfect trolling, because if she's going to be such a baby with space lasers from space, and I know you are, but what am I? That kind of just idiotic. A whistle is the best way to troll. And so eventually she had to wrap it up and leave. And I do want to end with this. They went on a 5.5, 6-month tour. What they raised during this time was $60,000. However, during this time of their town hall extravaganza, they spent over 4 times that amount. So this is what it looks like when a political grifter goes bust. So
I love that.
You're welcome.
I love it a lot. All right. Real quick before we go, I just want to say a couple things real quick. One, the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism Facebook group has over 1,100 members now. Didn't know if we all realized. I knew it was over 1,000, but that was awesome. And also, I wanted to say a special thank you to Apetivist, Smitty, Stacy, Chet, Robert, and Brant for being our Patreon supporters. We really appreciate you guys very, very, very much.
Yes.
And if you guys want to join that exclusive club, we have a link down below. And thank you all for joining us.
And one more thing, you guys with the Patreon really helps, because Nacha does this out of the kindness of his own heart, and we are able to pay for the system he uses to be able to bring this to you guys. So not only is he, donating his time that he doesn't have to do, he's also not coming out of pocket to provide the Zoom and things like that. So thank you so much. We don't do this for profit. We do this, I'll speak for myself. I do this because as someone who is disabled and can't really travel around and do things, I can use my mind muscle. And I try as hard as I can to learn as much as I can, and then make sure that what I'm learning is based in actual truth that I can find for myself. And then my passion is to want to share that. Media literacy and historical literacy are so important. And thank you for being here and indulging me in this. And actually, the feedback I get of I was able to share this with so-and-so, and they were so blown away, that cognitive dissonance, I'm sure is what was happening, that now they've changed their mind and they look forward to watching you. They don't watch you live because they're busy, but they watch you later. I've heard that a couple times. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That makes my year. And this is the most meaningful tattoo I have on my body. I love it so much. I can't wait for you to visit Mac. You got to let me know ahead of time so that we can make sure, that, I mean, I can't show it on here how beautiful it is. There's this one, it's just superb. And then all to that, I have to say to our Lord and Savior who is listening, because y'all's isn't. Stay humanist for godless sakes, mofos.